Hi, so I'm going to show you guys how to make a DVD from Premiere. So I'm starting out in Premiere. Now I'm using CS6, which is a newer version than what you guys normally use, but principle still is the same, how it works. We can either go out through what we call dynamic link, or we can go out through exporting a file. So the way that you can do option 1, which would be dynamic link, would be to come up here to your file and you choose Adobe Dynamic Link, and you would use a send to Encore. Now that's not highlighted because I don't have my sequence highlighted, and you need to make sure that you have your sequence selected here, so you can tell that by this little gold bar. So once I have that selected, file, Adobe Dynamic Link, send to Encore. Now Encore is the program that does all the DVD authoring. And because you're doing no menus and just want it to play, that might be the easiest thing for you to do. So once I click that, click send to Encore, it's going to ask me if I want to save. I had Encore open with another project, so I'm going to click no, I don't want to save that. But the first thing it's going to want me to do is create a new project. So this area right here is where I give it a name, so I'm just going to call this Demo 1. And then the location of where you want to save this project. So I have it in this folder on my media drive here on my laptop called Test Projects. But if you click the Browse button, you want to save this folder or this project file someplace that'll be easy for you to find later. So for instance, I'm looking at my media drive here on my laptop, and these are all these different project folders I have. So this project is actually this one right here. So if I were really going to be doing this, I would click, I'd want to save it in that same folder as where my project was. So I'll click that folder for now. So I've got my demo 1, I've got that. Now this is another key thing here. You want to make sure that you have DVD selected, not Blu-ray, and NTSC if you're going to be here in America, or if you were dealing with foreign footage, you'd go to PAL, but I think you guys are NTSC. So after we got all that, we'll click OK. And it's going to do some importing here and do some settings. And again, because you're in CS5 or 5.5, I think there might be a few little things that are different, seeing how I'm in 6. But Encore should open up. Let me click over there. There it is. And what you'll see here in Encore is down here, much like in Premiere, you've got a timeline, and there's my video. And you'll see over here in the monitor, there it is. So from this point, it's pretty simple. Now in Encore, you've got a couple different things here. I'll kind of cover them real quick. You have a project panel here, a monitor here. You have some tabs over here in the properties, and you have a timeline. This is where all your generic and pre-made menus and buttons are, but since you're not dealing with menus, we won't cover that. You can see up here in our project panel, we have a couple things. We have this is our sequence from Premiere, and this is what we call a timeline. And you can see right here the type says timeline, and then if we expand that out, it'll say Premiere Pro project or Premiere sequence. So now, to make the DVD, all we really have to do is we want to come down here in our timeline, and you can see we have the timeline selected, and I want to click just to make sure that it's selected. Once I have it selected, I'm going to come over here to this Properties panel, and I want to make sure that it says Timeline here, because what I need to do is I need to tell Encore what I want to happen when the video's done playing. I want it just to stop, which is what I'm sure you probably want it to do. And that is called end action, the end action of what happens when it's done. And if we click over here in this little arrow tab and come down here and choose stop. So when the video plays, it gets to the very end, and then it just stops. That's what we want to happen, since we don't have a menu to go back to. The other thing we need to do is we need to set what's called a title remote button. So over here in the project panel, I'm going to click once. So now I've got that selected. You can see again by the little outline here, and you'll notice over here now this says disk here in my properties tab, and there's a button down here called title button. I'm going to choose stop. So now I've got those two things set. That's all I really need to do. At this point, I just need to transcode, and you can see right here it says DVD transcode status, and it says untranscoded. So what I can do is I can right click and choose transcode now, and that'll transcode the video into MPEG-2 format for DVD, or I can put a DVD into my burner click the Build tab, come over here, and click Build. And with the DVD in, and once I click Build, it will start transcoding the video, and when it's all done transcoding it, it'll burn it onto the DVD. And that's pretty much all there is to it. That's the very easy way to go. Now, one little quick thing, if you wanted to preview what'll happen, this little button up here, this is Preview. It looks like a little DVD with an icon, or a little arrow. If I click that, you'll see that this little project preview comes up.
Welcome to the Solar Turbines Integrated Service
And you'll
Center.
see my video starts to play there. So that's just sort of a test to make sure it's working fine. But because you don't have any menus or buttons, everything should be working fine. So that's the easy way to get it to go, and that's probably the way that you would want to go. The way that I might recommend if I were you is to, let's delete this. I'm going to pull this out. Let's go back over to Premiere. This is way number 2. Option 2 is you've got your sequence selected here in Premiere. You're going to go up to File, Export, Media. And this is going to bring up this Export Settings dialog. And now what you want to do here, instead of, you're basically going to do the transcode ahead of time this way. And the reason that this is better, in my opinion, is that you have a little bit more control over the transcode. In the previous way, when you move it over to Encore, you're letting Encore choose the transcode settings. Now you can go in and change all the settings up inside Encore, but that's a whole other tutorial, and I won't waste a lot of time on that because I don't want to confuse you. But if you wanted to do it this way, again, you'll get a little bit more control of the picture, and you may be able to get some better quality. So for format here, we're going to choose MPEG-2 DVD. And that'll bring up a setting. Now for preset, it'll default to this match source attributes, and that's probably fine for what you're going to do. So I would just leave that there. So you want to come down. Now this is another very critical thing right here where it says output name. You want to choose, you have to choose where to save your audio and your video file. When you export this way, you create 2 files, one for your picture, one for your sound. And you need to bring both of those into Encore. So if I click right here, it'll ask me where I want to save it. And you want to save it in a place that you can easily find that's near your project. And you want to give it a name that you can easily recognize. Don't just leave it sequence 02, or whatever, unless that's a name that you can easily recognize. But give it a name, final timeline, final video, whatever, something that's significant to you and your project, and save it in a folder that you can find. Now, I recommend saving it, going back to your project file or folder, and saving it there, or even creating a new folder that says DVD files and saving it there, but save it someplace that you can find. So once you do that, you set that up, you want to come down to this basic video tab here. You'll see it says quality. For some reason it always defaults to 4. Slide that over to 5. Let's get the best quality we can. Next thing you want to do is come down here to where it says bitrate settings, bitrate encoding. It's set up for VBR1 pass. Click on that, change it to 2. That'll give you much better quality. Everything else you can leave the same. But the important thing you want to do is right up here where it says output and source, right in this area. You want to make sure that a few things line up. First off, you want to make sure that this number right here, 29.97 FPS, which is frames per second, matches this number, 29.97 frames per second FPS, so that your source and your output frame per second numbers match. Very critical that they do. Next thing you want to make sure is that this word right here, progressive, matches this word right here, progressive. Now yours may say upper or it may say lower. If it does, the point is you want to make sure that those match. If those don't match for some reason, you can come down here to where it says field order and you can manually set those. So you can see here you've got an upper, lower, automatic. So if it's on automatic, it should be getting it right, but you just want to make sure that those things line up. Very critical. So the last step in this process is to come down here and you want to choose this little thing right here that says use maximum render quality. You want to click that. And what that will do is it will give you a really high quality encode. Your video is going to look as good as it can possibly look by doing that. The downside is it could take longer to encode, but it's worth it. So make sure you click that and you should be good. Now when you're all done, you have two ways to export it. You can queue this, which will open up Media Encoder and queue it through that, or you can just click export right here and that'll export it directly out of Premiere. For this, I would just say directly export it out of Premiere. It's just an extra, going to Media Encoder is just an extra step that you shouldn't need to deal, you don't want to have to deal with. So just click export and then go get lunch or a drink or something like that, because it could take a little while to encode. And it'll let you know how long it'll take to do the encode. So once it does the encode, like I said, you'll have two files. And let me see if I have some DVD files on here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, because I didn't really encode ahead of time here. Let's see, I might have something in here, DVD files. Okay, perfect, I do. So you can see when it's all done encoding, this is a sample project I did, you're going to end up with these four files. The two which are most important are this one, that'll say movie clip, and this one that's wave sound. The rest of these are just sort of metadata files. You don't really need to worry about those. But let's go back into Encore. And I'm going to just double click somewhere here in my input, in my project panel. You can also come up to File, Import as Asset, and import things that way. I just like to double click, it's quicker. Let's go back to that folder where I had those files. Where did I have those files? There. Now you'll see when I open it up this way, Encore just ignores those metadata files and it just shows me my video file. That's, you can tell it's a video because it ends in .m2v, and the audio file, which is .wav, a wave file. So I'm going to select both of those and click open, and you'll see that it brings both of them in. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to get rid of that. So now I've just got my video file, I've got my audio file. I'm going to highlight them both, and I'm going to hit Control-T on the keyboard, or Command-T on a Mac. And what that does is that creates my timeline, and you can see down here in the bin it created my timeline with the video there. You can see in my monitor panel here, there's my video. So from here it's the same as before. But you'll notice one quick thing here is, remember before how it said untranscoded here, and now it says don't transcode. The audio still needs to transcode, but it takes just a little bit of time. That's not too long. But the important thing is the video doesn't need to transcode. So it should be able to burn much quicker this time. But we want to do the same things we did last time. So we're going to come down here to our timeline. We're going to set our end action right here. We're going to make sure that we're in the timeline property panel. We've got our timeline selected down here. We can see that by the gold bar that surrounds it. We're going to set our end action to stop. We're going to come over to our project panel, select that, so now it's highlighted and selected. We're going to come back to our title button, and we're going to set that to stop. It's already stopped from the last time we were here. We're going to come back to our build panel. We're going to put our DVD in, and we're going to click build. Now you can do this check project, but as soon as you click build, it should automatically check it. Check project will go through and make sure that everything's linked up and working. So if I click this start, you'll see I have a couple problems here. So the first problem is it says that I have an orphan timeline, and it says that I have an untitled project, the first play is broken. Now the reason it's telling me that is because I created a new timeline and I didn't set up the first play. First play is basically what you tell Encore, that when you put the DVD in, you want the first thing to play. So all I have to do is come over here to my timeline, right click on it, and choose set as first play. Now the reason that it's not defaulting to that is because I had that other project open, but if you open up Encore and import some video and audio in and create a timeline, it should automatically make it the first play. But if it doesn't, just right click on your timeline, choose set as first play, and you can see now it's got this other little icon up here that denotes that as the first play. So now if I come back and check project, let's start, you see we're all good to go, no problems. And if I preview it right here using the preview tab, you'll see that the video should start to play. And there we go, we're good to go. So I'm going to click stop there, close that. So now all I have to do is click the build tab and we're good to go. It'll build the DVD, burn it on there, and you're all set to go. And if you want to make more copies, you can change that right here and choose as many copies as you want. You can even name the discs, so where it says Untitled Project, before you burn, change that to whatever the name of your video is. And that will just come up when somebody puts it into a computer. It'll have that name. It's not going to do anything else with that information. But that's the quick and easy way to make a DVD with no menus that'll just play. So I hope that tells you everything you need to know. If you have any questions, please feel free to call.